But, I always used to say, when I was a sommelier, train the staff, I'd say, so if you're tableside and we're in halibut and they say, I'd like this Cabernet, the response is coming right up. They didn't ask for your opinion.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they like.
Let me teach you something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Actually, you don't know how to order food.
You don't. I think that
That's right. So, but if they ask, do you think this would go okay? Then you can say, well, we usually don't pair that together because of this reason, that. Customer service is
huge.
It's huge, right? Yeah. I mean, you don't want to go into a place you're paying $100, $150, $200 a person and have somebody
it's like their favorite
school you in front of you.
Their favorite wine, and it's like a special occasion or something, and you're like, you shouldn't get that.
Yeah, terrible choice, but I'll get it for you anyway. So.
But at my house, pretty much. You're gonna be like, I would like. No, you don't. No, you don't.
Use this as a teaching opportunity.
Right. No, you don't.
Welcome to Odd Pairing Podcast. I'm Paige, and I'm with Natasha.
I'm here.
You made it.
You guys only knew.
78 isn't keeping you down.
Right. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Today we have Will, the wine guy Bertner, president.
It's also my wrestler name.
Oh,
really?
No, Will, the wine guy Bertner. Come on.
Yeah, come on.
It should be. It should be.
Well, now it is.
Yeah, that's right.
It'll definitely be hilarious.
Yeah. I know. It could be my signature move. I could hit people with a wine bottle.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then drink while I pin them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
See? WWE. Where?
Yeah. Exactly.
President and GM at Coomber Craft Wines in Oceanside.
Correct.
New location coming soon.
Coming soon.
To Vista. And Fox 5 San Diego news contributor for how many years now?
Oh boy, 11, almost, we're in our 12th year, yeah.
That's a long time.
A lot of segments.
Education.
A lot of education, a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, a lot.
Yeah. And also level 2 certified sommelier with 20 years in the restaurant and wine business. 25, actually. 25.
Not that I'm counting.
Well, I should have said 20 plus.
Yeah, there you go.
Dang it. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're very excited.
Welcome.
So we're going to start off today with a side-by-side tasting that you brought for us, and I'll let you take it from here as to what we're starting with and all that. So
one of the things I like to do is I love tasting French wine that's the same grapes as California wine. And I love doing that with people so they can taste the difference, because the same grape, it's just difference in terroir, right? So terroir, is the culmination. It's the culmination of everything that grows in the growing the grape. So to give you a quick, for instance, like Oceanside has a very different terroir than Escondido.
Is that because of air, soil?
Keep it coming,
Water, everything.
Everything combined together is terroir. Okay. And we don't have a word in the English language for it, so we steal the French word and call it terroir.
Keep the French word.
Yeah. I like to think we steal it. So anyways, you'll see a big difference in terroir. Another grape that's really good for this is Sauvignon Blanc. So if you have a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand, it tastes very different than a Sauvignon Blanc from France or from California.
Yes.
Right? Very different. And the only real difference is the terroir. Right? And so now there's differences in winemaking as well. There's the choice of different oak and all that stuff.
I was going to say like steel or oak barrel.
Yeah, and the type of oak. There's so many different types of oak out there. And so we're going to open this bottle. So one thing you do, you always want to cut underneath this lip. See that? You never want to cut up here. A lot of people like to do that. Wine gets caught in that. So you cut underneath that lip, and then what a master sommelier taught me was to do a little line like that, right? And then it should come off pretty easy. See? Nice and clean.
It does. Look at me at the next party.
So this is going to be what we call a left bank Bordeaux. So Bordeaux is the birthplace of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, and Malbec, right?
Okay.
That's where those grapes originally come from. And so with this, we're having a Cabernet. Now this is a little bit more Cab. They do more blending there, so you're going to get more Cab and Merlot, especially a little bit of Cab Franc in that as well. Whereas this is predominantly Cab. Now, they don't have to put on the bottle in California what other grapes they put in here, as long as it's less than 25%. So this could be 25% Syrah,
and
but they could still call it a Cabernet.
Oh, interesting. Right? I was gonna ask about the labels, but
yeah. Why is that?
Well, because I think, you have blending grapes that kind of keep your flavors where you want. They have to give them a little leeway to be able to do that. In Australia, it's 85% of the wine has to be that grape. Different parts of the world, they all have different laws with that. And so in California, they deemed it 75% was the rule. So, never pour your wine first, right? It's bad luck. Go. So you're going to see an immediate difference in color, right? So the terroir of this region, Paso, this has one of the highest diurnal temperature swings on Earth. And what that means is that during the day in the summertime, make sure I don't spill too much. During the day in the summertime, it could be 100, 105 degrees, and then that same night it'll be 45, 50.
So just like the fluctuation.
It's the swing, they call it a diurnal temperature swing. And the reason it's that way in Paso is because that's still the Alaskan currents that are coming down. So you have really cold water there. So in the middle of summer when it's 100 degrees in those mountains, right? All that heat pulls that cold air, and that's why you get all that fog, like in San Francisco and all those places. It pulls that cold water, that cold air off of that. And that's what creates that fog. So it creates like a blanket of fog over the region, which is, I like to look at it like a blanket that puts the grapes to bed that night, right? So what they do is...
I was like, how adorable.
That's sweet.
So during the day, the grape is working really hard, 100 degrees, so the sugars are building, like all these things are building, and then its blanket comes in, it gets a little night-night, and that retains the acidity in the grape. So what happens is you get these grapes that are really high in sugar, but they're also really high in acidity. And so that's what makes the Paso region like really interesting when it comes to this. So it's one of the main parts of the terroir of Paso Robles. So I think what we should do is do a little taste. So on your left, you can see a difference in color right off the bat. You can see almost like a salmon, like kind of a brownish. It's a little bit lighter. Usually what you want to do is you want to have a white background, like a white piece of paper. So you can do it against this cup. Look at that.
I guess,
that's okay.
Have it again.
There you go. And what you would usually want to do is hold it at about a 45-degree angle, and then you can see the variation from the center to the rim, and then you can see it as well on the other one, correct?
Yes.
So you can see right off the bat, there is a gigantic difference between these wines.
Yes.
So when you're doing a blind tasting, like what we do with the quartermaster sommeliers, I know we'll get into that a little bit later, starting in the level 2, when they test you, you have to blind taste those wines. So you have to tell them what year it was made, what country it's from, what region, what grape, like all these different things,
wild.
right?
Yeah.
Blind. Not like they blindfolded, but I mean, like, without knowing anything about the wine. And so the first thing you do, it's like detective work, right? You're just throwing things out that it couldn't be. So the beauty to looking at this, first and foremost, is I know it's red. It's not white wine. So you can throw all the white wines out. Yeah, so now we've already cut off 50% of them.
Kind of like a guess who.
Yes, exactly. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And so,
Exactly
so with that, we've already cut 50%. It's not a rosé. Those are out.
Yeah.
Right. So now you've already got it down to 35, 40% of the wines that are out there. So then it becomes, is it light or is it dark? Right. Well, the lighter wines are going to be the thinner skin wines like Pinot Noir and that sort of thing. Whereas the thicker skin wines like Cabernet Sauvignon, even Syrah and that sort of thing, you can see really quickly after you've tasted wine, even just for a week or two, if you've done a few tastings, you can see right away, oh, that's definitely not a Pinot Noir. That's not a Pinot. There's no way. If it is, they put this thing called mega purple into it, and we can talk about that later. But that basically makes it look like that. And if you see Pinot Noir that looks like that, it's inexpensive Pinot Noir because they've added that stuff.
Noted.
To it. So that's the first part. So now we've kicked out Pinot Noir. I mean, as dark as this one is, especially, I mean, you've kicked out all the light grapes. I mean, you're not even doing Grenache. You're not doing any of that stuff at this point. So you've broken this down to about 6 different grapes before you even put it to your nose.
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
So then your nose is going to take you the last, get you to about 10% from the finish line, and then the palate either confirms or whatever as far as the nose goes.
Yeah.
Something like Nebbiolo from northern Italy, Barolo, will look like a Pinot Noir, very light, so you can't throw that one out. But when it hits your palate, it is as tannic a wine as you're ever going to have. Tannin is that feeling like when you had a vacuum in your mouth or something and it pulls all the saliva out and you're like, right?
Yeah.
So with the bigger, thick skin wines, you get that, right? Like the Cabernet and things like that. With the Pinot Noir, generally, you're not going to get that sensation, except with Barolos, Nebbiolo, the grape from that. So it's like it's a dead giveaway, right? When you look at it, it's light, and you taste it, and it sucks all the saliva out of your mouth. You're like, that's obviously a Barolo. It can't be anything else.
No, yeah. Right. Oh, wow.
So,
wow, it's a lot that goes into this.
Yeah, there's a lot of information. I love it.
You know, I thought it was hocus pocus, I'll be honest with you. When I started this, and they're like, oh, you're going to have to blind taste. I'm like, come on. You know, really? Yeah. There's so many wines out there. But there's rules to it, right? They can't just give you like a Zinfandel from, Morocco or something, right?
Yeah.
It has to be a typical wine from that region. So you know the typical wines. You know, if you're going to do, it's going to be Bordeaux, it's going to be Cabernet based if it's left bank, or low base if it's right bank. We can get into all that stuff later. Anyways, so what we're going to do is we'll taste the French wine first. That's going to be on the left-hand side. That's the one that's a little bit lighter in color, right? So you give it a little swirl. You always give it a little swirl because you're roughing it all up, right? And then when you go to put it to your nose, you put this right to the bridge of your nose, right? You dig your nose right into it because then you can smell it, right? Oh, yeah. So now you're going to pick up different little things. Now I'm getting a little bit of almost like a baking spice with this before I even get fruit.
It's definitely spicier.
Yeah.
My eyes a little.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like but there's almost like a nutmeg kind of thing, or I don't know if it's nutmeg or if it's like a coriander or something like that. I'm getting like these baking spices.
Almost like a winter spice.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So a little bit of that, and then I'm getting the fruit secondary. See, all these things are going through my head. So as I smell that, I know right away, this is not a New World wine. This is not a California wine, most likely. The French or the old world wines, as we call it, anything from Europe, you're going to get those sensations first, right? You're not going to get the big in-your-face fruit like you get with a lot of the California wines and a lot of the New World wines. So right away, I'm in Europe, right? So now I would break it down and start thinking like, okay, what could this be? You know, let's think of some other things that it could be, not what it isn't.
Yeah.
Right? So now I'm looking towards probably like Chianti or maybe a Brunello, which is kind of the same thing. Sangiovese is the grape. Or it's going to be what it is, a Bordeaux. Personally, like just putting this in my nose, I would think that this is more Merlot, honestly, even though what I read about this, it was more Cab, but barely, right? And so it's lighter in style. So now when you put it to the palate, right? Go ahead. You want to chew the wine like food. You want it to hit all the areas of your mouth. Sorry, I forgot to tell you that.
I didn't do that.
So you want to chew. You want it to hit all the flavor receptors because your nose picks up about 90% of the flavors. That's when you get a clogged nose and you eat or drink it and you can't taste it.
Yeah.
Right. And so you want to take it in the all over and chew the wine so that those aromas and stuff come in the back of your nasal cavity, and you really pick it up from both sides now. As far as you're getting the nose on the front when you had there, but then also you're getting all those flavors and everything are in the back of your palate.
Well, and then you pick up different flavors in different parts of your mouth or on your
sweet,
tongue,
salt,
right?
sour, bitter, and umami. Yeah. And so you want to pick all those things up. So you get a little bit of tannin here. So now this is a little bit too big in style for what an Italian wine or like a Chianti or a Brunello would be.
Okay.
A little bit more really than something like that as far as this particular one. This is really steering us towards France at this point, right? But it's easy for me to say because I know the label.
You said right, like we knew that.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
So now,
I'm totally France. Right.
I love it. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to stop talking so much this time, and I want you to just pick up the second wine and do the same exact thing that we just did there, and see if you notice any differences. So we give it a little swirl, right to the bridge of your nose. See that? That is fruit. That is plum.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
that is like big.
There's not the spice or the
nothing.
That sensation from.
And you put it on your palate. I mean, this is a monster, right? And this is that California. I call it a cocktail in a glass, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this wine.
I can believe it.
The French wine is made.
Just like, oh, this is.
It's big, right? I mean,
big.
it's plum and blackberry and even some raspberry. It's not just all dark fruit. We get some lots and lots of fruit, minimal other, a little bit of vanilla, not a ton. So I see a little bit of barrel inclusion in this. This isn't 2 years buried in oak. I wouldn't imagine, like some of the wines can be. So this is letting the fruit speak a lot more, and the barrel just kind of adds to it a little bit, right? So a lot of time, like with Napa cabs, you're going to get a lot of barrel inclusion. It's going to be huge fruit, huge baking spice, sometimes some vanilla in there. Like, it is gigantic, right? And that's what Napa is known for, a big Napa cab. So when you go to steakhouses, if you look at the wine list, it's like, here's your Napa cabs and here's everything else. Yeah, it's because of that. So you can see right away the difference from a French old world wine that's really the same grapes, with a little exception as this wine. But you see the difference in terroir and winemaking with that. So when you're tasting these wines, the French wine was made to be put with food, cheese, different dishes that you make. Whereas the California wine, you can easily put it with a big steak, but you can't put that with anything delicate. You're not putting that with definitely nothing like a halibut or something like that.
I was going to say not fish.
No
or
way.
Something like that.
No way.
It's just too robust.
Yeah, and then the tannins in the wine also, that when they cross with the seafood, you get almost metallic flavor. And that's why you don't want to. Yeah, you don't want that. Yeah, but I used to say when I was a sommelier, trained the staff, I'd say, so if you're tableside and we're in halibut and they say I'd like this Cabernet, the response is coming right up. They didn't ask for your opinion.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they like.
Let me teach you something.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, you don't know how to order food.
You don't. I think that
That's right. So, but if they ask, do you think this would go okay? Then you can say, well, we usually don't pair that together because of this reason, that. Customer service is
huge.
It's huge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to go into a place you're paying $100, $150, $200 a person and have somebody
it's like their favorite
school you in front of you.
Their favorite wine, and it's like a special occasion or something, and you're like, you shouldn't get that.
Yeah, terrible choice, but I'll get it for you anyways. So.
But in my house, pretty much. You're gonna be like, oh, I would like. No, you don't. No, you don't.
Use this as a teaching opportunity.
Right. No, you don't.
So, anyways, there you go. That's the way we kind of walk through tastings.
I had a question about stems versus non-stems.
Oh yeah. So here's the deal. This is the handle of the wine glass. So I want you to picture a hammer, right? You never pick a hammer up by the head of the hammer and try and hammer a nail with it.
Right.
You hold it by the handle. And that's what this is, right? And so the reason is because when you put your hand on there, this is 98.6 degrees. You're taking that wine that should be, red wine should be served in really low to mid 60s, right? They say room temperature. That's because room temperature used to be 65 degrees until we had heaters and all this. And now it's 72.
You don't everything's temperature controlled.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So when you take your 98 degree hand and put it on your 65 degree wine, it pretty quickly comes up in temperature. So the warmer the wine is, the more sugar you taste. The cooler it is, the more acid you taste.
Interesting.
And so here's the thing. So let's look at Sprite. Okay. Picture Sprite poured over ice cold. You drink it, tastes like lemons and limes, right?
Yeah.
Now picture a warm.
Acid,
That's it. Now picture a warm Sprite, like room temperature. You drink it, it tastes like syrup.
Yeah.
Yeah, all sugar.
One tastes like sugar and one tastes like lemons and limes.
Wow.
So it's the same thing with wine, right? So when you put your hand on that, you're changing the flavors of the wine. It's served at a particular temperature because that is what balances the wine out on your palate. That's the whole idea. So you always want to hold the stem when you can. The other thing is that it clouds up the glass, and if you're really like evaluating the wine, you can't really see it because it's through all your fingerprints.
I was going to say too, with isn't the trails?
The legs.
Trails.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody's got a different name for it.
Things on the glass. Because that's a part of it, right?
That's the most overrated term in wine tasting. Somebody came along and was like, "Oh, look at the legs on this," right?
Yeah. Well, it's just kind
or
of
the church windows, right? Yeah, it's just, but somebody had some sort of fringe knowledge, and I don't know, whatever.
Somehow it took off.
The only thing that does, if you swirl a glass and you can see them start to fall, it tells you the viscosity of the wine. It gives you an idea when you're blind tasting if there's more or less sugar in it, and it helps very minutely help you determine which. Basically where it's coming from, how far north of the equator and whatnot, like because it's more sugar. Yeah. It could be from this region if it's fermented dry, like you know what I mean? Yeah, like it's a very minor thing. As far as quality goes,
it does seem like it was like people do it and they look at it and like, oh, it looks like it's falling nicely. And I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Well, I'll tell you what it means. It means the person you're drinking wine with has fringe knowledge. Right? And from then on, you just kind of nod and go, okay. Right. Anything you say
Obviously,
from here
I've never been around anyone with French knowledge. I've never heard that before.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so that's the deal with stems. So, people have the stemless glasses. I know you use them. And it's great for casual, your table wines that cost $10 or so, $12. You're sitting around with a friend, and wine doesn't have to be pretentious like this. Let's be real, right? I mean, I'm walking you through kind of like the standards of it. I mean, at home, I don't know the last time I used a stem glass. I usually use this one thing. I look like an old Italian man walking around with a tumbler full of red wine.
This will work.
So that's the thing. So
it's a vessel.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
So don't take it too seriously. But if you have a really nice wine and you've spent a lot of money on that wine, you want the stem glass. You want to make sure it's at the right temperature. You want to hold it. You want to swirl it with that. And you definitely don't want these rolled rims that are on here. You see how it's like almost like a speed bump, right? So that's glass. Whereas I think the other ones that you had also had that, but with crystal, that's going to come to a sharp point. And what happens is when that wine gets to that edge, keep my hand there just in case, it hits that and it spreads out. And it hits all these parts of your palate and it really fumbles up all the flavors. Whereas with like a Riedel glass or like the crystal, what happens is it comes to a sharp point and it aims at certain parts of your palate, depending on which grape variety you're drinking with. Yeah. And I thought once again,
people really have put a science into this thing.
Well, the crazy thing is I did this tasting with Riedel. I'm sure you've seen it, R-I-E-D-E-L. A lot of people say Riedel. It's Riedel like needle is what they like to say. So with Riedel, they come out and they do this tasting and they bring out rolled rim glasses, they have their crystal, different shapes, everything, and they finish with a red Solo cup, right? It's really cool. So they pour the same wine in all of them, and you cannot imagine how different it tastes from one to the next to the next to the next. I would have never believed it if I didn't go through the tasting myself.
That the glassware itself had that much of an impact.
Humongous
on
difference.
The beverage.
I mean, it was like two completely different wines. In the proper stemware from Riedel, it had this elegance. It pulled out every single flavor. You could really get it. The red Solo cup, I mean, it might as well have just been grape juice. I mean, like, you couldn't taste it. It was fumbled up. It was all over the place. I don't know if it reacted with the plastic or what happened, but it was like, I watched it pour. It was the same wine. Yeah. And it tasted
I'm bougie with a red Solo cup anyway. You can't pour me anything in a red Solo cup.
Come on, not even a Pabst Blue Ribbon?
You can't even. You can't pour nothing to me. Unless we playing beer pong, you can't pour
There you go.
nothing.
Oh, see, there's always an unless with the red Solo cup. Unless.
Yeah, right. Unless we're playing beer pong.
I like those red Solo cups that have the measurements. You know how they have the lines? Have you seen that? And like every line is a different measurement. So the bottom line is like a shot. Yeah. You should fill it to there. And the next line is like 8 ounces. And the next line is like 12 ounces. And the top is 16 ounces. Yeah. I'm telling you. I'm a professional with this, right?
25 years in the food and beverage industry.
Yeah, of course you're gonna pick up a little something,
I thought you might bring Coomber wines.
Yeah.
And we didn't drink those, but why?
So Skip and Maureen Coomber own Coomber Wines, and Skip is adamant about us never getting cellar palate, which is something I agree with. Cellar palate is when all you drink is your own wines. And you never taste anything else. And what happens is, all of a sudden, your wine quality starts to go down because you're not comparing it to anything, right? And so when you don't,
that's a good point.
When you aren't comparing it to other things, You just keep thinking, oh, this is fine. This is great. This is fine. And you don't realize the quality's going down. You're just getting used to these off flavors. And they're getting more and more and more. And, you know, how do you tell somebody that you like in the industry, you know, dude, your wine sucks now, right? I mean, you're great people. I don't do that. Like, if they ask my opinion and pull it out of me, I'll tell them. I won't say it like that. But, but otherwise, I'm not going to volunteer that information. How offensive is that?
Right.
So what we do, Skip is, like I say, adamant about this. You know, we want to taste our wines, and we taste them every day, right? Anytime the staff opens up, our wine stewards behind the bar, I want them tasting the wines constantly. They taste and spit, right? Because, you know, we don't drink at the tasting room. We're just not one of those places. I never drink there. The owners never drink there. We just don't do that. And neither do the employees, right? And so, they taste and spit everything. But I tell them, like, I want them drinking other wines. And I definitely, I mean, I'll bring some wines home once in a while. Don't get me wrong, but not like more times than not, I'm buying other wines because I want to taste these wines. And then when I do taste or drink our wines, it's like, oh man, this one's actually tasting a little bit off, or it's tasting, wow, this is tasting really good.
Keeping your palate trained
That's
so
right.
that it doesn't get like fatigued or used to if
That's
you're
right.
saying certain flavors. So that you can be true to style.
Well, you start to get attracted to those flavors. I mean, you know, $2 Chuck, right? I mean, when I first drank it, oh, it was terrible, but it was all we could afford, right?
Right.
So, you know, you're 20-something living in San Francisco, you're buying cases of $2 Chuck. I'll tell you what.
When you're 20 or 21 living in San Francisco.
After 3 months of drinking it, you get used to it. And it does get good. You're like, you know what, I'm fine with that now.
Yeah, it's time.
Whereas,
okay.
Yeah. I always tell people this though too. As soon as you start drinking other wines that are $10 and 15 and 20 and 30, there's no going back.
Really not going back.
You can't go back.
Yeah.
And so if you enjoy that $2 Chuck, don't dive into this world.
Yeah.
Not unless you're ready
This is
for
an
it.
expensive habit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Are there any other notes? Like, I know we did the tasting with the reds, but how we talked about like a white. What sort of,
well, one of the things you look for when you're tasting wine is that if you put your nose to it and you smell anything other than fruit, like we were talking about baking spice or vanilla or something like that, that's from the barrel. Okay.
Oh, so it's not from the grape.
No.
Okay.
If you're tasting anything fruit driven, raspberries or blackberries or plum or any of that other stuff, that's all from the grape. Right. And then you also have yeast that gets into the mix and the type of yeast they use and all that stuff to actually make it happen. You know, because that's an interesting process in itself, right? The way that all goes down with fermentation. And so yeah, if you're tasting, like I say, anything that's not fruit, that's the barrel. If you're tasting fruit, that's the grape. Right. So sometimes, like with white wines, you'll taste all fruit. That's stainless steel, most likely, or even a cement egg. Sometimes they use that.
Yeah,
so where you're getting no flavor from the barrel. It's clean and crisp, like really good Sauvignon Blancs.
Everything is coming from the grape.
Exactly. Yeah. And you look at it and it's almost clear to look through. It's greenish, you know, sometimes and very, very, very pretty like that, like a light gold color. Not even light gold, like yellow, not even gold. Because when it gets to gold, barrels also give them color. Right. Okay. And so, you know, if you, two things will give white wine color, right? Age, oxidation, right? Where oxygen gets into it and it sits for a while, or barrels, right? Barrels will give it a little bit of color sometimes. That's exactly right. Well, we talk about a lot of the time with, you know, whiskey and with, you know, anything, especially whiskey, but tequila, say tequila. Right?
Your kind of thing.
Yeah. So you have silver, you have reposado, and then you have añejo, and then you have extra añejo. And all that is how long it's aged in the barrel.
Yeah.
Because silver really doesn't see any barrel time, so it has no color.
Yeah, 0.
Reposado sees 9 to 12 months in a barrel, so it's light brown. Añejo sees 1 year to 3 years, I think is what it's at now, because they just changed it up with this extra añejo.
Yep.
So añejo, it gets almost brown, and then the extra añejo it gets
Like pretty
dark.
dark, right?
Yeah, it's almost
and that's
looking
like 8 years and beyond.
Yeah, and that's where you're tasting all that barrel. That's that vanilla and like all those things. Like it's really good. And those are American oak barrels, not French oak most of the time. Yeah. So it's the same thing with wine. You get back to it. You know, barrel influence is a big deal. So, you know, and then one thing you always want to remember too is with white wine, the older it is, the more color it gets. The younger it is, the less color. And red wine is the exact opposite. The older a red wine gets, it loses its color.
Oh.
And the younger it is, it's more vibrant, big in style.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What about rosés? Does it follow the white?
Rosés are tough because there's so many different hues to that. You don't know like really started as. So it's a little bit tougher to decipher.
Yeah.
You'll pick that up more in your palate than you will by sight, right? Because you don't know what it started as a lot of the time. It could have started. Depends on how much skin inclusion they have. Because all the color comes from the skin of the grape in most grapes, right? So you take a Cabernet grape and you squeeze it, it comes out clear, right? But when you crush it and put the skin and everything in there, and they do what's called punch downs, where they get this big thing that's about this big, and they do it by hand sometimes, where they're punching the cap, they call it, because all the skins float to the top and create like a crust on top, and then you're punching those back down because you're stirring it almost like a stew. Right, so you're extracting all those colors out of the skins, and that's where you're getting the tannins and like all that color, and that's what people are allergic to when they say I'm allergic to wine. I get headaches.
The skins?
The skins. It's the histamines that are in the skins.
Oh my God.
Right? Yeah. Whereas you hear people that always say, "Oh, it's sulfites." So if you've ever had a piece of deli turkey or a dried apricot, there's more sulfites in one dried apricot than like a bottle of wine.
Wow.
Right? Because that's what preserves it.
Yeah.
And so sulfites, the reaction to that is more asthmatic, and it's like 0.5% of people. Whereas the histamines that are in the red wine skins, that's what gets people to react and they get headaches and all that stuff.
Oh, I've noticed sometimes when I drink certain red wines that I get more sneezy.
Yeah, totally.
I'm like, where did this come from?
It's the histamines in the skin, yeah.
That's-
So if you go with lighter style wines, Pinot Noirs, things like that, or even especially like old world wines, you're going to have less of that because they don't punch that cap the same way, right? They'll leave the skins in there and let it get, be part of the wine, but they aren't extracting every little bit out they can. I mean, that's another reason why that's so dark, right? It's because they are punching it down, or they're doing what's called pump overs, where they have a pump on the bottom, a hose, and they just pump the wine over the top. Yeah, and they're circulating it constantly.
Oh my gosh, this is so much information.
Wow. Well, look at me at the next party.
Oh my God.
I mean,
Will?
it's so funny. You're going to have to rewatch it about 10 times. There's so much information. You try and get one thing out of there.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Watch out, my friends out there, because guess what? You're in trouble. You are in trouble.
That's right. Somebody's coming with knowledge, locked and loaded.
With all this new knowledge. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So how did you originally become interested in wine and
where
it all started?
It started in San Francisco, and I moved to San Francisco to actually kind of hone my game as far as golf goes, and I wanted to play professional golf.
Oh.
And so I'd played fairly well at the amateur level, played some junior college stuff. We did really well with that, and I left junior college to pursue golf, and played some amateur events, played on teams, did pretty well, and then gave up my amateur status and went up to the Canadian Tour, went to their qualifying school, just had a bad week, wasn't hitting it that good, and you can't have a bad week when you're like trying, especially when you don't have a big funding behind you, which I turned down because it was too cocky. It was my own fault. I had two people who wanted to fund me, and I was like, I got this, right? Because they want 60% of your earnings.
Oh wow, that's a pretty high percentage.
Well, it is, but they're paying for all your bills.
Oh,
right. And it's a big write-off for them. So they're paying for the hotel, they're paying for the gas, they're paying for the travel, they're paying for everything. So they should get 60%. And I was like, I can do that myself. I can save up enough. All I need is 3 tournaments, and I know I'm going to play someone and make enough money to keep moving on. What a cocky jerk I was. Like it was.
The honesty.
Yeah,
man.
Self-awareness.
Oh, I just slapped in the face. Like, reality hit. I had a bad week. That turned into a bad second week. And then I had enough money at that point where I was either going to put the clubs away and take a road trip across Canada to go see a cousin of mine. I was in a convertible Mustang my dad let me borrow. Right? He was driving my old beat Cutlass. well,
you're cruising the city.
Oh yeah, I got the California license plate with the convertible Mustang going through Canada.
Yeah.
Oh man, I mean, I might as well have been Tom Cruise going through that. Right? So I had a blast, right? And went out there. I said, screw it, I'm done. And I went out, spent a month and a half with him, just hanging out. Came back to the city, and I was like, all right, well, I'm done playing professional golf. I'm over this. I love the competitive side. I hated that side, the travel and the playing for money. It just ruined it for me. Right? Yeah, it really did. And so now I'm stuck. I got no college degree. But I'm tending bar. Or actually, at that point, I was still working as a doorman at Bellman in downtown at the Westin St. Francis. And buddy of mine, we were playing golf a few weeks after I got back. And he's on the golf course, and he got a call and said, hey, I just got the job as a GM, Bob's Steak and Chop House in the Omni Hotel. And I said, do you need a bartender? And he said, I do. And so he said, you're my first hire. So we ended up hiring a whole staff, and it came in. They were just building that hotel at that time. This is in 01, 02. So I went in, I was there, first one in, putting stuff together and getting everything together. Kevin Lee was his name. He gave me the opportunity. And then, I started tending bar. I tended bar in small bars before that, just little like off the beaten path places.
Right. But you just ask for a rum and coke and a beer.
Exactly. And so I was doing that for a few years. That's where the 25 years come in. And actually, your intro is probably right. It's closer to 20 years of being a legit, real, F&B person. But I did make money for 25 years doing this. Okay. So I get put behind this bar, and all of a sudden, I'm in the big leagues. I'm on California Montgomery, one of the 3 busiest intersections in San Francisco. I got the Bank of America building across the street. I got the Transamerica Pyramid about a half a block down that way. I got cable cars going by, and I'm the lead bartender because I was the first one hired. The guy who's number 2's got 24 years bartending experience in San Francisco, 26 years behind him, and 20 years behind him. Right. So I'm looking at 60 to 70 years of, and that was all in the big leagues bartending. Right. And I'm there like, good thing I was on the golf course that day.
I know someone.
So the guy second behind me, his name was Danny Wu. He's a big Chinese guy, just a big laugh, just a great guy. And he was asked that when it got to my point where, they had to either keep me or not. It was pretty well known that they were going to let me go. And they went to Danny and they said, hey, we're thinking about letting him go. Like, what do you think? And he said, no, he can talk to the people. I'll teach him. Because I just want to sit in the well anyways and make drinks. He was really good at making drinks real fast. He didn't like conversing so much with the people. He said, let him do his thing. So because of that, I was able to stay on. And and so I was number 1 in seniority. So he did that knowing that I was going to have control of his schedule, right? And he had another job, and he had family, he had all these different things. So when I found this out, I was like, look, Danny, you tell me what you want, and that's your schedule. Right. And, you do a bid when you're in a union like that, because we went union. And so I said, whatever you want is what you're going to get, and then I'll take whatever's after that, right? Because I wouldn't be here without you, right? And so that was always our deal. Was that he got... I'd write out the schedule as what he wanted. I would take whatever was next. And then everybody else. So that's how I kind of got started. We had all these wines behind us. I'd never seen a label, anything like that. I just knew how to drink it. I didn't know anything about it. Right. And a buddy of mine, George Blankensee, who's now have you heard of Chateau Montelena in Napa? It's one of the big, it's really, if there's a Mount Rushmore of Napa wines, they'd have to be on it, right? He's a bigwig with them. I don't know I think he's like a state general manager. I don't know exactly what it is, but he's a bigwig with them. And he's such a nice man. So he was the director of food and beverage for the Westin St. Francis. And when I was working there, and he introduced me to wine.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Hey, come check this out." So he poured a 96 Silver Oak for me. This is in 99.
Mm-hmm.
And then 96 BB Latour. You know, these are very expensive, very good wines. And I'd never tasted anything like that. And those were my epiphany wines.
Oh,
Like, that was
everyone
like,
has
whoa.
something. That,
Yeah.
I was like, this is wine. This doesn't taste anything like the crap I've been drinking, the $2 chuck.
Right.
That's
Quality.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what kind of sparked it. But then after that, when I got the bartending job a few years later, I'm looking at all these labels. And I'm like, what does all this stuff mean? Because we had a great French selection. We had all these great, cabs and pinots and like from all over the world.
Right.
And so, eventually you get sick and tired of saying, I don't know what that is when somebody asks you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting paid a lot of money I'm getting tipped a lot of money to be here. I should probably know what I'm talking about.
Right.
So I started looking at it a little bit more. And then eventually I met my wife, my girlfriend became my wife.
Mm-hmm.
We quit our jobs there in San Francisco. We traveled through Europe for 3 months for our honeymoon.
Mm-hmm.
We did a month in Canada, in Newfoundland, where a lot of my family's from, and we came back here. And that's when I dove into the sommelier program when I was working at West Steakhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what really got me into it. So
Yeah.
it's the very long-winded podcast answer. That's how I got it too.
Fitting
I'll tell you,
is what I want to call it.
yeah, because on TV you don't talk like that, right? It's like, oh well, this guy introduced me to it. I got a great bartender job, and then I became a sommelier.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah. That's all we have time for.
Yeah, that's right. Nice to see you, Will. See you later.
Right. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's how I got into it. And then at that point, you take the level 1 test, sign up for it. It's nerve-wracking. Even though they say that like 97 or 8% of people pass it, it's not because it's easy. It's because all those people that sign up for it study enough. And you have to know grapes and their regions. The different flavor characteristics and things aren't so much because you don't have to do the blind tasting part. But what you do is a 2-day seminar with 4 or 6 master sommeliers. And they're level 4s. They're as high as it gets, right? There's only, give or take, about 300, maybe close to 400 now in the world.
In the whole world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like the highest.
I remember, what was the guy's name? Ivan. How am I forgetting his name?
Yeah,
he was the one who told us. He's the owner right here at Madeira Kitchen.
Oh, okay.
Mexico.
Nice.
And he told us that it was like 300, and I was like, wait, in the entire world?
Yeah. It's the highest fail rate, they say. You never know. Everybody else they say.
Right.
Of any
this
profession.
say?
Yeah,
Right.
I know. I love it. My favorite. We were just talking about this. They go, well, experts say. I'm like, what experts?
Right.
I know. Studies show.
Right.
What does that mean?
What studies are these?
My 8-year-old studies. Now she's really smart. I'd take her word for it. But so yeah. So you have this group of master sommeliers that walk you through over 2 days. 2 full days. We're talking 10 to 12 hour days. They walk you through like, this is how you blind taste. This is how you serve. This is how you serve champagne. This is how you do these things. This is what you look for. And you're doing blind tasting and you're walking through this and they want you asking questions and they want to go through all this stuff. And as long as you go in there loaded with the knowledge of just understanding that, Cabernet started in the left bank of Bordeaux. There's a river that runs through, the Garonne River. And if it's on the left bank, the west bank of that, it's Cabernet based. If it's on the right bank, then it's Merlot based, right? As long as you understand those things and that red Burgundy is Pinot Noir and white Burgundy is Chardonnay and, just those sorts of things, then you go there and they really take that knowledge and they work you out, right? And so, so you come out of that with a ton of knowledge. And then, so the test at the end is like, whatever. I mean, you're still a little nervous, but you go through it. And that's why,
Right.
yeah. Well, and you don't want to like flunk and come back and be like, I was one of the 2% that did, I really am dumb.
My family be like, all that wine you drinking, you couldn't pass that test?
I love it. So yeah, it was great. So I went off and did that. I was in Vegas. I came back and I was like, I have a career. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was such, I remember when they called my name, it was such an epiphany moment for me. Like this feeling came out of me that I've felt maybe 5 times in my life, like with different things that have happened. Most of them hole-in-ones when I was playing golf. But
I think like when your children were born.
What's that?
Like when your children were born.
That was different. You know, you're in a setting that's like
Say when you got
that's
married.
Like, well, no, I mean, okay. So the children being born is more of a war zone that you're like, oh my God, everybody's still alive, right? You know?
100%.
There's blood everywhere. And most people are like, here's your baby. And you're like, oh God.
Am I allowed
I'm just
to hold
glad everybody's getting out of here alive. We walked in here with 2 lives. We got 3 walking out, right? Like, you know? So, no, it was very different than that. This was much more simple and joyous, right?
like epiphany, like
That's right.
Oh my God, I got to keep this alive for 18 years.
Yeah. Oh, man.
or fear.
Yeah. No, this was simple.
Joy.
Simple, pure dopamine. Serotonin goes crazy.
Yeah.
Just pure excitement. They're drinking sparkling wine with master sommeliers. They're the coolest people on earth. They really are. Because they're beyond all the pretentiousness, right? They don't have to be pretentious. They freaking know everything about what you're drinking and what you're doing.
Exactly.
There's none of this fringe knowledge like, oh, look at the church legs or any of that crap. And making people...
Church legs?
Sorry, the church windows or the
The church legs.
church legs.
I love it.
I think we're crossing some lines with that one.
Well, there's French knowledge in here.
I know,
Some
who
people
cares?
may call it church
Screw them and their
legs.
church legs. That should be the name of our wine. We'll come out with a wine. We'll call it church legs.
Yeah.
Please. Oh my gosh, so good.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's how I got into it. And then eventually the level 2 came around. That was super nerve-wracking. That was way different. That wasn't excitement when I heard my name. That was pure relief.
Yeah.
Because I was so worried I didn't pass. Like, there's no way I passed.
Yeah.
I mean, the service portion
It's
of
like
that.
a licensure exam.
Oh, man.
You come out of there and you be like, there's no way I passed it.
Yeah.
And then you get the notification in your email or you get it through your mail and you like, is that?
There's
you got
no
everybody
way.
else in the house reading it.
Yeah, you're like, can you double check this? Sure, that says that I passed.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure that day. Yeah. So I can, I totally know.
Well, and here's the
that
problem.
feeling is like.
You got that letter at your house. This is in front of all of your peers. They announce your name or not at the end of it. So you're called out.
I would not enjoy that at all.
Oh, yeah. It's like, they don't say the people who failed. They just don't call your name.
Yeah, but then everyone knows.
Oh, it's tears. It's
You
like,
know who failed.
of course, that's the one that's crying. Right? Because you put so much study into that.
Right.
Going from level 1 to level 2 is like big. And then going from 2 to 3 is 10 times that. And level 3 to 4 is 10 times that.
Yeah.
Right? And so,
I can imagine.
Oh, man. So level 2 is certified. I said, that's it. I read some statistic that talked about...
experts.
From some experts that talked about how the divorce rate goes up like 80% from level 2 to level 3 because of the amount of time you have to spend in tasting groups. And so you have a tasting group before work, then you go to work, 10 hours on the floor, and then a tasting group after work. So you don't get home till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. You wake up at 10, go to your tasting group by 11, and you're doing this every day, prepping for months and months and months. And you're studying in between, and you're listening to the podcast, and you're doing all this stuff. You're fully immersed, right? Really and then, you're spending most of your time with this group. Yeah. Right? With one of your 2 groups. And so when I started reading that, I was like, my competitive side wanted to do it, but my married side didn't. Right? So,
it really comes down to just, I think from just, hearing about the relationship status of it with it being a high divorce rate. It's almost kind of like you have to be with someone or get them to understand that you're supporting me in something that's later on going to pay off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it's like being the wife of a professional athlete. You know that
minus the millions,
yeah, right. Like they're going to travel. They're going to study their craft. They're probably going to be after playing. Hitting balls or throwing balls, or whatever they do. Yeah. They're going to be doing this back and forth. And in order for me to become the best that I need to be, I'm going to have to fully immerse myself into this. Can you wait out those months?
Years.
That it takes.
Years.
Yeah. Is it years?
Years. Oh, man.
Yeah. Can you wait out that time that it takes?
And I didn't want to put her through that. There's no, because you look at it, what does it get you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you become an advance. It's really good for your ego, right? And it's great for your craft, don't get me wrong. But what is that craft? Nowadays, you don't have sommeliers on the floor in most places when that's all they do is be a som. They're basically a really well-trained manager, right? Because they're still writing schedules. They're still showing, they're still bussing tables.
Yeah.
They're still doing all this stuff. I mean, they're still doing all these things. And then they get to go tableside and be like, well, let me tell you all about that Cabernet.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And so you're
So
not...
a bunch of people who just like, which one matches?
Yeah. They're like,
Just tell
we're
me.
talking right now. We don't need to hear you talk.
Right.
What should we get? That one. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, it just sometimes seems like with restaurants or like higher end restaurants, you know, it's like they will advertise or market about their sommelier and
Sure.
things like that.
Yeah, and then they work them to the bone, right?
That's the part that probably like customers don't
That we don't know.
know.
Yeah.
That part.
Yeah, no, it's great to have a sommelier
Yeah.
because they do have the way you have to look at a sommelier is they're basically the masters of the front of the house, right? So the chef is obviously the master of the back of the house.
Yeah.
They know everything about cooking and preparing and plating and everything that goes with being a chef, right? Scheduling and prepping and like there's so many things that a chef does. So I hear this, oh, they're a celebrity chef. I'm like, oh, where do they work?
Nowhere.
Right? I want to hear like where's this person? What's their food cost this week? Are they doing okay with that? You know, what's their labor rate doing? Like, are they scheduling too much? Oh no, they just have to get in front of a TV and cook some dishes. You're a food enthusiast. You're no chef.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There should be a different name.
Chefs are chefs,
Right,
right? Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
And then
You got to come home with a few stains on your clothes.
Yes, and burns. That's why they get all the tattoos, right? They cover up all the burns all over them, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's intense.
yes,
Yeah.
it's tough.
Super
I mean,
intense and
it
tough.
is, and you're
Yeah, that's
working.
what my husband
hard
says. He'd be
environment.
like, "Oh, I got kissed by the oven," and I'm like,
Yeah.
And you're okay
Yeah.
with this, sir?
Yeah.
This
And you
is,
can't
this is
say
the
it's
job
hot.
you wanted to be for
You
the rest
better
of your
not.
life.
That's right. You better not say it's hot, because if you do, the next guy's coming by you with a hot pan. He's gonna go, "Oh, is that her?
Yeah.
Oh, how about hot tongs?" I'll leave the tongs, and the brother come by and be like, "Oh, that's not hot." Right?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm not made for that house.
Right.
So that's the thing is that.
I'm barely made for the front.
So the front of the house, they know the back of the house. I know the front of the house, and sommeliers know the front of the house. We know how to take care of the customer. We know how to pair the stuff up. We know how to get them, how to translate what they're saying when they say certain things. Like, I want that medium. Okay, so that's going to be pink all the way through, and this. No, I don't want to see any pink. Okay, I got it. Thank you. That means you want it well done. You know, but don't do it over well. It has to be like medium well plus or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So you
I
have
saw
to
a
like.
joke today that said that somebody had cooked the steak and they showed it and they was like, "Oh, you know, I like just finished cooking a steak," and obviously it was like well done, but it was like really done.
Yeah.
And somebody under the steak was like, "That's not a well done. That's congratulations."
That's good. I like that. Man, I spent a lot of time in steakhouse. That's right.
Good. That is good.
And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, yes." I
Yes.
know some people who like a good congratulations on their steak.
Yeah. And that's, it is what it is. But you translate those things. You do that, and then you're pairing wines, and, you're doing it all in a timely manner. You got to feel for the people walk in with kids.
Yeah.
You got to take care of the kids first. What can I get for them? Do they want pasta? What this? You get food and drinks in front of the kids, like 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Now we can talk about the adult stuff, right? Like, it's all those little nuances to taking care of a table and take care of the front of the house. Understanding your pour costs behind your bar and what to order when you start ordering. Like, what do I order at what cost? And like, how do I do this? Because wine is like your biggest enemy when it comes to your pour costs behind a bar, because you're pouring half the wine down the drain sometimes, right? Because after you open it, you
can
get
only
a
stay
day
open
max.
for
Yeah. So you can't put a wine on that list that you know is not going to sell the whole bottle out,
Yeah.
right? So you put a wine on there. Oh, I get these people. They're like, "I love this wine. That's why I put it on the list." It's not why you put a wine on the list. You put a wine on the list because it sells. This is a business. This isn't your little passion thing, right? Like, we're not at your house. And so, it's understanding all those nuances and being able to translate from the kitchen to the guests, right? And you get caught in the crossfire a lot of the time. The kitchen's super bad because the guest sends it back. They say they don't like it cooked like this. And they're like, "Why'd you do that?" And they're yelling at you. And they don't mean it towards you. And every now and again you lose it and you say, "Well, then go tell the guest."
Yeah.
They're right up there, table 4. Go ahead. Go ahead, chef. Come on, I'll hold your stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll hold your tongs.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and they're rightfully upset because they did what was on the ticket, right? But you have to be able to, like, massage that and finesse it and be like, all right, I'm going to keep them happy. I'm going to keep him from killing anybody, right?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. I got a high five from the sign. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's something that's, you know, that I could see how that could be really, really hectic because you going into a place, you have people coming in and they're ordering what they think that it's called.
Yeah.
And then it comes out a different way. I've done that so many times.
Yeah.
Where I was like, no, I want it cooked this way. And then they come back and I'd be like, no, maybe I didn't know what I was talking about.
Thank you. Thank you for just saying what you just said right now. Because nobody says that, right?
What I wanted. And I do that only because I'm married to a chef. So I know that it's not a mistake that they're making.
Yes.
Now I know that.
Yeah.
Because at first I was like, I mean, I know what I ordered. Right?
Yeah, I know. You didn't bring it out right.
Right, you didn't bring it out right. Obviously, this is for another table.
Wrong.
You know?
Yeah.
But now that I know that and being able to send it back, I'm like, okay, maybe I didn't say what the right term of it was.
Yeah.
And you wrote down correctly the right term.
Yeah.
And you took it to the back. They cooked the right term.
So,
but I didn't say what it was.
So I came up with this saying to get me past rude people, right? And I said, weakness is the weak man's impersonation of strength. Right? Rudeness is the weak man's impersonation of strength, right?
Yep.
And so when somebody's rude and they're mad, and they're like, this steak isn't done right. You should, this place is terrible. Yeah, blah, blah.
Yep.
All they're doing is they're pretending to be strong because they think that's what strength looks like.
Yeah.
Right? So I would start sitting back and I'd go, oh, so cute. You're trying to be strong, right? Like, that's good job.
Yeah.
Whereas the strong person we know, think of the strongest person you know, somebody you're like, that's a strong person. If something came out and their steak was off by a little bit and they want to send it back, they'd say, you know, I just don't like it this way. Is it okay if I send this back? And, you know, that's a strong person, right? The weak person starts yelling about, that's not medium, that's medium plus.
Yep.
Right?
Wow.
And so that's what
and
kind of
being
gets you to
strong
that.
is a skill in the art.
Oh, yeah.
It's a skill
It takes so much training and effort to get to that strength where you have the confidence to not care if the steak is this much overdone. Or even for me, like, I'll order it medium. Medium rare is what I like for most stuff. Filet, maybe rare. If it comes out well done, I say, thank you very much. Is it that big of a deal? Really? In the whole scheme of things?
I was just going to say, I don't think I've ever sent something back.
Yeah, I mean, very rarely. I can't say never,
like
honestly.
If they totally messed it up, it was something I just didn't want.
Yeah.
Or that I know that I can't eat. Then I usually would just be
that
like,
makes sense.
I think that you guys kind of made a mistake here. Let's, you know, can we kind of like send this back?
It's like unedible. Or
I can't eat
well, actually, there was one time.
See, that's why I could.
Well, it was in Spain, and I ordered fish. And
Here comes the American.
It came out with heads on. It was like 5 fish with heads. Yeah. Full heads. And I was like, I can't eat this.
Yeah.
My food is staring at me.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that was the only time. And I was just like, I don't need it anymore. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like,
It's so funny.
But it wasn't like, oh, it's not cooked right. I was just like, this is definitely a me thing. I can't eat something with eyeballs staring at me. And I was like, I don't know what to do.
So it's so funny. That reminds me of the story when we were on our honeymoon, right? We obviously 3 months, we're not ridiculously wealthy. We're on a gigantic budget, right? Like a very skinny budget, right? So we allowed ourselves once every week or two to go eat something nice, right? Other than that, it was like, I mean, we were finding McDonald's all over Europe, right?
Brie or whatever.
Well, you can only eat so much lamb anyways, let's be real. So, so we go up to the spot up above Lake Como. You know, Lake Como is where like George Clooney has a house. I'll talk about that. It's like, it's stunning there. I mean, it's a stunningly beautiful lake. There's this little town up on top called Bernate. Right, and you take the funicolare, you know, the little tram, and it takes you up, you know, I don't know, maybe a half a mile or a mile or whatever, up to the top, the Brunate, and it looks out over the whole lake. It's gorgeous. So there's this little cafe. We get up there and we're like, let's do this. This is gonna be our spot.
This is our spot, yeah.
Right, and so we'll get something nice here. We'll get something really nice later. That turned into a whole nother deal. But she said, my wife goes up and says, "What's the specialty of the house?" And he goes, "Oh, the lake, whatever the lake fish was." Mm-hmm. She's like, "Yeah, that's what I want." And I was like, "I don't know, I got something else, whatever it was." And it comes out, and it is about 150 to 200 minnows that are not cooked and not cleaned, and it's all little fish. It's like you're eating your pet goldfish, basically, right? And it's all vinegar. And mind you, my wife, I mean, I love her so much for many reasons, but she looks at me and goes, "I ordered the specialty. I'm going to eat this." And she sat, I said, "I'm going to go get us a lot of beer right now."
Like, seriously.
Yeah. So she ate this plate. I have this picture of her. It's one of the funniest pictures you'll ever see of anybody eating anything. Mm-hmm. And it's her eating the first one. And she's like, painfully eating. She ate that whole plate.
Did she end up liking it?
Enough. Yeah. You'd have to ask her. I don't know if she gave me the honest reply, but she did it though. She did it. But it reminds me when you said, "I don't want things looking at me." Man, I had 300 eyeballs looking at me, right? 150 fish. And, it's little guys. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was like, "What did you order?" "Oh, you should have ordered the lamb."
Can't go wrong with the lamb.
Yeah, that's right.
Or the chicken. Can't go wrong. Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now I know that when I go
when you go to Europe,
be careful.
Be careful when you order the fish.
And know this too.
No, I just won't say that I will have
the specialty of the house without asking what
whatever.
It is. Yeah, because I did that too. I said I want the scampi at one place. I was like, "Oh, just simple scampi."
Yeah.
We in America think scampi is a garlic dish with pasta and shrimp, right? That's not what it means. Scampi means shrimp. That's the definition of scampi.
So just like...
So I got these 5 shrimp. I said, "I'll have the scampi."
So we say shrimp?
Basically, yeah. I mean, that's what they said anyways. I don't know. I didn't really look it all up. But experts say that that's what it is.
Expert is
Yeah, that's right. They brought... I give you the house specialty. I had enough wine in me. I would have eaten a cardboard that was on the thing. Like, I was like, whatever, right? And they bring out these 5 not deveined, fully veined, they call them shrimp, but they're like this big, right?
Almost like a lobster.
And that's it. Just 5 of them on a plate, like
almost.
staring at me. Yeah. Like giant prawns that have had nothing done to them other than cooked.
It just seems like that would be really messy.
It was messy.
Yeah.
And I forced myself to eat it. My wife was like, "I eat all this damn fish." You're eating that scampi.
Right.
You're like, "I want to hear it."
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, "You're right. You're right." So I choked them down, and I told the mother and the 2 sons who ran this beautiful little restaurant. It was in Cinque Terre, on the coast. Have you ever seen pictures, or have you ever been to Cinque Terre? Oh gosh, please go. It's 5 towns that are on the coast. They're 2,000 years old, I think, or so, and they're all walking paths between them. And they are
sounds magical.
Yeah,
it does sound magical.
No, it's if you see it, it's one of, like, I'm sure the 5 most visited or most talked about places in Italy to go see. And so we're on this cliff and looking out over the Mediterranean, and we're this beautiful. When you see what I'm talking about, you'll be like, "Wow!" And I'm like, "Whatever your house specialty." So it is near Genoa. Okay. So it's in between Genoa and like France, really, like Monaco. Okay. So it's in that area. But it is, man, stunning. So I was just so taken back. We've been drinking wine. I was like, whatever. And it's a mom and 2 sons are running this cute little restaurant on the side of a cliff looking out over the Mediterranean. Whatever your family eats is good enough for me. And there I am staring at our family. I'm like, "Oh man, I didn't know it was like that." And my wife just sitting there going, "You should have got the pasta, dummy."
You didn't learn from me.
Yeah, that's right.
My 150 fish.
Right.
Oh my God,
Whoa.
that's so good.
That is. That is.
Yes.
So let's I guess get back on track. So one thing when a question that we have is when people, they hear about San Diego, they don't think of wine at all.
No, yeah.
I mean, I just learned that you really didn't think of beer
I'm about
either.
to blow your mind. You might want to refill.
You didn't even think of beer either. So,
well, yeah. I mean, that was.
Tell us
thank
a
God for
little
White
bit.
Labs and what they did for the beer industry.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
Do you want the French or the California?
I'll do the California.
Oh, look at this.
Now I have a preference.
Yeah. See. Now,
take a little bit more of that as well.
if we had some Manchego cheese, I'll bet you'd be going for the French wine.
The French.
I don't know though. This is pretty good stuff.
So tell us a little bit about like San Diego's county's like wine industry.
So San Diego is the first place in California where wine grapes were grown.
Seriously?
Yeah. Think about the Spanish explorers coming up. They didn't start in San Francisco. They had to come up from Mexico and they set up all that stuff. So, it's argued sometimes that it might be in Orange County, one of the missions there, where the first ones were. And I said, well, they had to make wine for the Catholic Church and all that stuff. And if the oldest one is here in San Diego,
Right.
Yeah.
and I'm just going on a limb here, I'm going to say that they probably grew it there first, the grapes, and made the wine there first.
Yeah.
I don't know, just going off of logic. But so one way or the other, it's close. It's either one or two, but I'm going to call it one. First place. And so not only that, but there's this guy named Agustin Heresty. And he was an ousted royalty member. I don't know exactly what his title was from, I believe it was Austria or Hungary or something like that. So he got basically kicked out, is what we all think, according to history books. He moved to Minnesota to make wine because he wanted a cold region like what he came from to make wine. Well, he figured out real quick that it's too cold, right? 50 below is not going to do it.
Ice is not too good. Yeah.
So he said, I think I've got the place. And he moved to Mission Valley. This is 1856 or so. He moved to Mission Valley in San Diego. And he set up shop there. And after a few years, he realized, okay, he was making wine, but he'd heard about this area up north where the land was a lot cheaper and it was much more vast and all this stuff. And that was Sonoma, Napa, basically. So he moved up there after I don't know how many years in Mission Valley. And he started up what we all now, for most of us, we recognize as the oldest winery in California. That's arguable. I don't want any hate mail or anything like that. But
that's what the experts say.
Yeah, that's what the experts tell us.
Studies show.
Right. The studies show that was that the Buena Vista is what it's called. Buena Vista Winery is the oldest winery in California, started by Agustin Heresty, and that's in I believe it's Sonoma, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But he started it in San Diego. San Diego was actually a very sought after area for a lot of agriculture, especially in Vista and places like that, right? Where I live. I love Vista. Shout out to Vista. And it was recognized it was recognized as one of the best places in California. This is at the turn of the century to grow wine grapes because of all the microclimates, right? The terroir. The terroir is so varied, right? Think of all the hills in Vista. They call it Vista for a reason. It's not because it's flat. It's because you got all these places you have views, right? And so, so it was all taken off. And then Prohibition hit. And as soon as Prohibition hit, we went from becoming quickly known as not just San Diego, but California as a whole, being known for world-class wines, like winning competitions, worldwide competitions with the wines that were coming out of the state, to hundreds of wineries in Napa and Sonoma and even down here. It all got wiped out. The beer industry as well, right? And so when that all got wiped out, we went 10, 12, 14, whatever it was, however many years, I can't remember now, and basically wiped out a generation of wineries, breweries, wine drinkers, beer drinkers, like everything. So when it all started to kind of kick back in the mid to late 30s, what is it, 32? Is that when Prohibition was? I can't remember exactly the years. Anyways, 30s and 40s.
And we did an episode on it.
Yeah. So when it kicks back in, when it kicks back in, you have a generation of people that are like, I don't. Yeah,
They missed out
are
on
we
it.
supposed to drink this?
Yeah.
And they kind of fumbled around, and then you had your baby boomers that were born, and and then wine, like maybe, but people weren't pairing wine with food, and it wasn't like a thing like it was before.
Right.
It could have been the cavemen that were making this stuff, right? Because they weren't looking at it that way.
Yeah.
And then along comes White Zinfandel, right? And White Zinfandel was a mistake. It was a stuck fermentation at Sutter Home that was in the back, and they're doing a tour or whatever it was. And people were like, we want to taste that. And he's like, ooh, that's a stuck fermentation. So stuck fermentation, is where the yeast basically stops converting the sugar into alcohol. And so you're left with a bunch of sugar. So it's sweet.
Super sweet.
Yeah. So
is that
they
Moscato
taste
too?
it.
Is that where it came from?
Well, Moscato has a lot of sugar in it anyways, and they purposely stop the fermentation a lot of the time to leave the sugar in it.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
So with this, it was a total mistake, accident, Sutter Home. And these baby boomers who were like trying to develop this palate like the Europeans and like all this stuff, fall in love with this White Zinfandel. And so this is why I tell people that are, especially like myself in 40s, or if you're in your 30s, there's a chance you were conceived because of White Zinfandel. Right? So don't talk down about White Zinfandel.
I wouldn't put it past
So let's just
that
call it
was
what it is.
actually White Zinfandel was actually my intro wine.
Yeah,
That's
it
how I got
was
into it.
America's intro wine.
Yep.
It really was. People fell in love with this stuff. Oh, this is wine. Right?
I did too.
Yeah, and so
And
now
that's
you
the
don't
thing.
drink it.
Now I don't drink it at all.
Yeah.
So that's the thing about what we're getting in the evolution of wine, and going back to your question about San Diego, that's kind of what happened, is that we were getting known as a wine region along with Napa and Sonoma, maybe not to the same level that they were at that time. Maybe somewhat we were, but anyways, we've always been a region that could do it as far as grow wine grapes. You have volcanic soil, tufa up in the Ramona area. You have very cool soil, really interesting terroir up in that area. There's definitely areas that we can grow grapes here. I mean, that's definite. There's no,
so cool.
So, there's places, if you get up to the Highland Valley and you want to go up to a vineyard, check that out. We have some of the best urban wineries in California, like the one I run, Coombr Wines. But also there's plenty of other ones. Take a look. There's Caruth, and there's, Solterra, and there's a bunch of really, really cool urban wine tasting rooms where we're pulling grapes from different vineyards throughout the state. We make the wine, and then we serve it like we do in Oceanside, soon to be in Vista.
Yeah.
But then you have over 100 wineries in San Diego.
Which I had no idea.
Yeah, you're talking about, what was it, 115 or something? We have 163 breweries somewhere around there.
Yeah,
give or
we're
take.
up there. Yeah.
So it looks like we have, what's that, 115, over 100, maybe a little bit, about 250 episodes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I just walked into a math episode.
Yeah, I was like, oh, what are we doing math now?
Seems like we're going to be on air a long time. Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So that's the thing. I mean, so is it a wine region? I don't know. 115 wineries would tell me it's pretty much a wine region.
Right.
Right? I mean, it's, to me, that is.
Yeah.
That's as much as, or more so maybe than Temecula. Right? And Temecula is recognized as this wine region.
Right. It's a destination.
Riverside County and all this stuff. And they do big, beautiful wineries, and they're awesome. Temecula is also the only wine region on earth that has 22 million people within an hour and a half. It's not even close, right?
Wow, yeah.
So you got to think about it like that's why Temecula is what it is, because they get all the people.
Access to Riverside County
the
and
buses
LA
pull up with all
County.
the bridesmaids and bring
Yeah.
on the Oaky Chardonnay and the big Cabernet. I know. I love it.
So good.
I love talking to my sommelier friends, and they're like, they don't know how to make wine. Their Temecula wine sucks. And I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
I've had some fantastic wines out of Temecula, as I have San Diego and whatnot. And when they grow the right grapes, right, they're really good.
Yeah.
But the people that are pulling up in the buses and getting off in the bridesmaids things, they aren't looking for your cute little Spanish variety that you grew in this 1 acre. Bring on the big, buttery, oaky Chardonnay and Cabernet. And this is what I tell them. as goofy nerdy as we are about wine and all this stuff, if we open a winery in Temecula, guess what?
That's what we're
We'd be
making,
serving
and that's what we're
Cabernet
selling.
and big buttery oaky Chardonnay. That's just the way
that's
it
what
is.
the customer wants.
Yeah. So it's not that they can't make good wine. They make the wine that the customer wants, right? So whereas in San Diego, I find a little bit more, I hate to use this word because it's not like they don't have integrity there, but integrity to the wine itself. Because in San Diego County, they have to make a good wine to get people to come back, right?
Yeah.
We don't have the 22 million people showing up.
Right. Yeah.
And so they have to make a good wine. So when you go to these places, up in Highland Valley especially, and up through Ramona, there's some killer wineries up there. And there's some mediocre ones too, let's be real. Man, we're talking about 90 plus point wines with wine enthusiasts. Wine enthusiasts to me is the bar, right? They're the ones who really have a killer. They invented it. Robert Parker and wine enthusiasts invented that 100-point scale. And so
I was curious about that because I see like the ratings, you know, at Costco or whatever, and there's like two different ones.
Oh,
And I was like, those are high numbers.
I know.
But
I love
like, what's the difference between the two?
But the difference is
because that's me. That's pretty high. Get that.
So you got to look at the name on it, right? Because Will the Wine Guy gives us 99 points. Well, Will the Wine Guy got paid $100 for every bottle there in case he gets sold.
Right? Totally.
Whereas,
okay.
You see what I mean? Like it's not that I do. I wish I got paid like that, but but wine enthusiasts seems to have amongst the most integrity when it comes to rating the wines. Wine Spectator's up there, but they're also known as they have their ads that they take, and you never know like if it goes hand in hand or how that works. I mean, they're recognized, and Wine Spectator educated me on wine so much, right? But in the wine world, like kind of behind the scenes, we look at Wine Enthusiasts as the one. Like when they give a high score, that's like the one. If Wine Spectator gives it a high score, it's fantastic too, because the consumer sees that and they come in wanting that wine, right?
Got it.
But if we're looking at like when I'm looking at
now, I know what the
but if you go into my favorite is Bevmo. What is it? William Wong, is that his name? Something like that. He was the wine buyer for them. So he gets a killer deal on a pallet of wine. He's like, oh yeah, that's 96 points. Check it out.
Good to know. The expert says.
Right. Now I have to go to Temecula and shake it up a little. Now that I have like this knowledge, you know what I mean?
And
I should go and shake it up a little because they're used to doing the calves and their shorts. But
just
I'm going to shake it up a little.
That stuff's okay. But I'll tell you what. I got a really funny story. I don't need to get into because I'm actually going to throw somebody on the bus if I do. But then we don't want to kill any sponsors here, right?
Right.
So potential sponsorship opportunity. But I was supposed to go do a segment at this one winery, and they couldn't have been more off-putting. When I was there, I was trying to taste and get through it, and I'm like, look, I'm going to do a segment on Fox News about you guys, right? And they're like, whatever, And then, so I show up, and then the next place me and my wife go is Dofo, right? Which is this little family-owned spot. Very expensive wines, I'll be honest with you. But we went up there, and we're at the tasting, and I tell them what I'm up there for. And it's like going to your cool aunt and uncle's house. It's like very homey, the way it's set up, and they couldn't be sweeter. And here comes Marcello Dofo, right? He comes out, oh, what are you doing? I hear that you're here because of this and that. I said, yeah, we'll be here, next week doing this up the street. And he goes, oh, well, I got to show you my place. Come in. So he grabs us, throws us in the back of the tractor, right? We're in this little thing. And he's like, we're going through, right? Going through the vines. And he goes, this is where the speakers are. He has speakers out there. He goes, I play music to my babies, to the vines. Right? And he goes, I play this type of music and this and that. And he's like, motor along. Right? And we go up and he was just getting ready to open his new motorcycle museum because he was a mechanic or body shop guy in LA for a long time. So he opens this up and it's all these Ducatis through the years and these Hondas and like all this stuff. And I'm like, wow. And he's got this killer Ferrari. It's beautiful in there. And he's like, these are like my prized possessions, but I want to show all this stuff off. And the wine was fantastic. It was pricey, but it was fantastic, right? And but it became worth it at that point because you drink that bottle when you get home, and it's still good.
Yeah, but
and
you have that attachment
right?
and that memory.
Yeah,
of the experience.
Yeah.
Brings it to the next level.
It really does. It really does. And so go look for those places, right? Go to the big ones, check them out.
Yeah.
But go to the little ones. Go to the little. You never know what you're gonna find. Those little gems that you're gonna find. This is how we found the one at the big one. I was talking to them and to the person that was pouring wine. He was super cool. Everything else that was going on wasn't, but he was super cool. And I said, "Hey man, I want to go check out a winery in the area. Like, what's a good spot I should go to?" He goes, "Oh, go check out Dofo. You're gonna have a great time there." All right. Sure enough, he was right. You always want to tip the bartender and ask them and say, "Where should we go? If I'm your cousin and I'm in town, where are you sending me?" Right?
Yes.
And so they all think of a family member when you say that to them.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you got to go here.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's what I did, and that's how that worked out. So that's Temecula, but with San Diego, Highland Valley, oh man, Espinosa's great. I mean, there's so many great wineries up there. I mean, it's beautiful up there too.
Yeah.
You get to the top, and you're up there, these wineries, and you're looking out at the ocean. You see Catalina and San Clemente Island. You're looking over Escondido and San Marcos and Vista and Oceanside, and you're looking out at the ocean while you're sipping this wine that's really well made, you know?
Magical.
And it is. And it's 25 minutes from here, 30 minutes from here, right? I mean, like, anyways.
It's so good.
So yes, I think San Diego wine is fantastic. I think we have a lot of legitimate places.
Sounds like it's going to be a while before I get up to Napa.
Yeah. Napa's great. You know, I was just tired of waving $100 bill and saying, please give me a taste, right? You're 3 deep, and it's like, why? When you can go to these places and they'll taste you on everything they have there.
They're
and it's
part
all
of
right
your
here.
community.
They're part of your community, and they're making good wine, you know? Go up there, have a good time. Don't get me wrong. Like, Napa's great, Sonoma's great. They're all great for what they are.
Yeah.
Right? But there's nothing wrong with driving 25 minutes from here and helping a neighbor out.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And going more than once.
There's my take on San Diego wine. Yeah, like the exploration and discovering things and doing these things that you don't just read about and say, you have to go to this place in Napa, right?
Right, yeah.
So, yeah. That's
we are going to ask you what your craziest night out involving alcohol is.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I don't think I'm allowed to legally answer this.
Close out the episode. We're going to, give us a fun story.
I feel like you got a good one.
Oh man, I can't tell the ones that I know.
The ones that you know are ones
you can always do where it's like you don't say anybody's name.
Yeah.
You know,
no, I'm saying my name. I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about me.
I got something like that too. I'm still gonna tell them though.
Man, no, there's some locked up in the vault that we don't talk about.
You don't have to share those ones. Just something.
No,
fun.
I know. Gosh,
That brought you together
like in the last
with
week,
people,
month, year.
It's up to you. It could be those experience, like, I don't know, just anything that, or if it's not crazy, we've also like any like that epiphany type of thing, or if there's any other type of.
All right, I'll give you one. I'll give you my
thing.
favorite bottle of wine I ever
Okay,
had.
let's do it.
So my wife and I were in the Swiss Alps, right? And we're staying right next to Lake Lucerne in a little town called Merleschachen. And we're staying on the sheep farm there, and it was the original kind of Airbnb. We couldn't afford this place.
Sounds very Sound of Music.
Oh, it was. It was 100%. My wife, who's a professional vocalist, kept singing the Sound of Music as we're going through. She's like, the hills, right? She's got the whole thing, right? And it looked like that too. And I mean, we wake up.
Oh my God, amazing!
And we couldn't afford this place, but it just so happened we're in Lake Como in Brunate, and I'm rifling through the internet trying to figure this. This is an 06, right? My laptop was like the size of this chair, right?
Yeah. It's like a brick.
Yeah, exactly. And I see on the calendar that this place is available. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so expensive though. But the whole year is blocked out except for next week. And I'm like, I gotta call. I gotta see what the deal is. So I call her up, and she says, oh yeah, they canceled. They already paid. And I said, okay.
So can we say that?
Yeah, I said, my wife and I are on our honeymoon, and we're on a tight budget. I hate to even ask this. I'm not trying to get anything for free. I know you have a beautiful spot. I saw the pictures, but I'll throw it out there. This is what we can afford.
Yep.
Would you be willing to take it? She goes, I don't ever negotiate. I said, okay, I get it. She goes, but it's already paid for anyways. So why don't you come out? I'll take the money you're talking about and come out. Okay.
Wow.
So we get up there and we take the train, and we're going through the Swiss Alps. It's like Right, stunning. So we get up there, and it turns out that she is the biggest American country music promoter in Europe. Her name's Irene. Now, my wife at the time was singing in 2 country bands in San Francisco and a rock cover band and all these different things, right? And so, my wife's grandfather is one of the founding officers of the Country Music Association. Like, like royalty when it comes to this stuff, right? And so we come around the corner and we open up this barn. She's showing us around. We're on a full sheep farm, right? There's cattle over here and there's sheep over here. And there's like, and it's like you're looking out over the lake with Mount Pilatus in the background. I mean, like it's unreal, right? Yeah. She opens up this barn and it is a full-on honky-tonk, like Texas bar, right? God. And we're like, mind you, we've been in, Italy and Greece and all these places. And honestly, I was getting a little like homesick for the United States.
You're like, America!
Seriously, big flags up there, like American flags. And like, it was amazing. So we end up going to this festival that she had the next day, which was a rodeo on the Swiss and French border. Right? We show up.
Wow.
Like you can't. It's Dodge Ram trucks. Everybody's got handlebar mustaches. There's about 2,000 people there.
What?
There's a stagecoach going by. I mean, it was crazy, right?
Yeah.
They're all wearing like chaps and they got the Levi's and the whole thing, but they're drinking Bordeaux, right? And speaking French, and it's the funniest thing you've ever seen in your life.
Like good costume party for them.
Oh, man.
And you're like, this is home.
Yeah.
Right.
So Irene says, hey, when
That's
the rodeo's over,
hilarious.
they're doing like all this cow stuff and all these things. And so she says, when the rodeo's over, I want you to come sing with the lead act. This is thousands of people. This is a huge barn.
Yeah.
And my wife's like, look, like, I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes here. And she goes, no, I promote this whole event. And so they're in there doing a sound check. And he's up there and he's kind of a Garth Brooks type, right? Like big high energy country, like the whole thing. And she's about this tall. And you ever see The Incredibles?
Yeah.
You know, the one that does all the costumes and stuff?
Oh,
Picture a redheaded version of her. Okay. And she's like marching up, with her stern face. She goes, stop. She's about this tall. She's like waving her arms. And he's like, hold on, everybody stop.
Yeah.
And he's like, what, Irene? What? She's going to sing with you tonight. My wife's like, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. And he's like, okay, I get it. Later on talking to him, he's like, that woman makes me so much money. Like,
it was okay.
Whatever she says, I do, right? Like, I make a full living because of it. Anyways, so my wife ends up getting up and singing and doing all this stuff. Like, it was a crazy night. I could go on forever about that. But come to find out later on, the next day, Irene went to the hospital. She had something, I think it was cancer or something. She was getting removed, and her husband comes out. And we just gotten a Spanish bottle of wine, right, for $5 or $10 or whatever down at the little store.
Wine.
Yeah, and I'm out there barbecuing, like I'm barbecuing steak and looking at the cows, and I'm like, sorry. Guys got to eat.
Right.
So he comes up and we're sharing our wine with him, and he's like getting kind of emotional because we didn't know, right? And he says, can I bring you a bottle of wine? Can I share my wine with you? And I'm like, sure. So he brings up a Chateau Lafite Rothschild. It's a first growth wine at release is like, I don't know, $500, $800 a bottle at release. And I'm like, I go, hey man, you don't have to share that with us. He goes, I have cases of it. Right? Like, he goes, we go to Bordeaux, we do this and that. And I'm like, you serious? So he shares this bottle of wine with us, and we're sitting there drinking Lafite Rothschild, looking out over Lake Lucerne in the middle of the Swiss Alps after we came back from a rodeo. And where everybody's speaking French. Right?
Yeah, a French rodeo.
And I'm like, man, if this isn't a dream. I mean, it's just too crazy to think otherwise. So that's the best bottle of wine I've ever had, was a Lafite Rothschild looking over Lake Lucerne on the honeymoon in the Swiss Alps after watching a rodeo on the Swiss-French border.
That's
So
amazing.
good. So good.
And it just like basically gives it a little bit of closure of a closed mouth don't get fed. You asked. You could have been like, all right, can't afford it. We're not doing it. It's not going to happen. I'm not even going to call to see if they would even give us a chance. And for you was like, I'm not asking, but I'm asking.
Yeah, I got to ask.
Right.
We're on our honeymoon.
What's the worst you can say is no.
Right. Yeah.
And they ended up saying yes.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah.
And you guys had the best time of your life there.
I teared up leaving that place because you have to understand, like, going through Italy for a month, and we had our trials and tribulations because we're on budget. We're not staying in 5-star hotels and all these places. We went to Rome. We went to all these different places throughout Italy. Right? We were in Venice and Capri. We went out there and Napoli and like everywhere. We went all over the Cinque Terre. It was amazing, but that was after, right? And a lot of frustration with the trains and like staying in these places that are budget places and
then at the time that you guys went, the internet wasn't as advanced as it is now.
No, but the beauty is nobody had nobody had security though, so you could just pirate like everybody's so that was to get there and have a full 6 days or whatever it was in the most serene, beautiful place. And then we ended up meeting somebody at that rodeo who said, please come stay with me and my family. So we stayed for another 5 days in Switzerland, another part of Switzerland with him. And we got to, he was a farmer but he loved America as much, if not more than any American I know. He wore the Harley Davidson Born to Be Free with the eagle. And like, he looked, he had the leather on, like he looked like a Harley Davidson, like a biker, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Big guy, right? Just the sweetest, most wonderful guy.
Yeah.
And, but he loved the United States. It's this like little culture that's over there in Europe where they just celebrate everything America. And it was, what an eye-opener.
You actually find that in a lot of countries. Because I know as I was traveling, that's how it was. A lot of people that really, really love America.
The biggest lesson I got, I think, was from I think he was about 16, 17-year-old. I was playing pickup basketball in Barcelona. And I'm playing out there, actually, this is the one I was playing basketball or something in Italy. And it was this Italian kid. And he had on like a Tupac shirt and like all this stuff, right? And he goes, oh, what nationality are you? And I said, whatever. And I said, well, I have a German last name. And, my family originally comes from Ireland. And he goes, you're American, right? I said, yeah. He goes, why don't you just say you're American? And I go, I don't know. And he goes, why would you ever be ashamed to be American? He goes, look at us, all of us, everybody you see, we're all American, wearing American clothes and talking American. We listen to American music and do this. He's like, why would you ever be ashamed to say I'm American? And I was like, I will never say anything other than American ever again, right?
Genealogy. He wasn't asking for your genealogy.
No, he's like,
where your family comes from. That's a very American thing to do. Where you're like, oh,
it is.
I'm this and I'm that.
Because everybody is from somewhere else.
But that's American.
But that's American.
Right.
We're this melting pot, and we want you to know that we're not really from here. It's a lot of mixture that's going on.
Well, and we look at it because you look at Italy, the Romans, and thousands of years, and Germany, and thousands of years, and England, and thousands of years, all these history books, and we have Native Americans, obviously, that were here 10, 12, whatever you believe, thousands of years ago, right?
Yeah, and America itself, just a couple hundred.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So I think we still search for identity a little bit with that. But I think we've made a lot of strides though in the last, especially the last 10 or 20 years. And I think that's going to continue to happen. And I think we're going to get a little more ethnocentric, which is what I think we need as Americans.
Because we're getting away from the first generational anything.
Yeah.
It's like, you starting to hear a lot of like, now you're hearing, I'm a second generation, I'm a third generation,
Yeah. And it's like, I don't even know how many generations I am.
Yeah. And so after, I think, like after the third, you're not saying it anymore.
Well,
you're just like, I'm an American.
I didn't realize, I'm fifth generation Californian, right? That means my kids are sixth generation Californian. So now, when do we stop saying this?
Right.
When do we just say in California?
Just California.
I mean, that's
you're not trying to hold on to what you were like the previous generations.
Yeah.
In the same way.
And we have an identity
because we're the only ones that got a checklist. On when you go just to the DMV, for instance, what is your ethnicity? And you like, I'm like, oh, I didn't really think about that.
I'm like, you know what? Ask my Italian friend. He'll tell you what my ethnicity is. Yeah, I'm American.
Right, period.
Next.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care about anything else. I'm American. Done. I don't want to talk about that.
That's why, because we're the only country that does that.
Yeah. And that's so funny how we have to have all these micro this and that. And I understand, there's a lot of first generation, second generation. Well, we're 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, 10th generation at this point, whatever we are, right?
Exactly.
As far as Americans. At that point, you're friggin' American. Let's be real. So, that's the way I look at it. There you go. There's my my trip and
that was for sharing that story.
That was an amazing trip.
Yes.
And now I won't be, as shy.
Yeah.
When it comes to asking.
Just ask. And I ask in a humble way. I'm like, look, I know you would never be able to do this. I get it.
Right.
But if it's vacant and you want somebody there, we're really good house guests.
You're going to like
We'll share our $5 wines with you.
Right. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here and going through that tasting with us. That was definitely going to have to rewatch this episode a couple times.
I know. Go scare your friends with your new knowledge,
to get all the knowledge.
The views are going to go up, at least 200 times just because I'm going to be watching. Just because I'm going to be watching it over and over.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. How much fun was this?
This was amazing.
This is about as much fun as I've ever had.
We gotta have you on again because I feel like we didn't even get into
part 2
education of the region.
Like we just really need
all sorts of stuff.
Some more.
We need to pick your brain a little more.
Yes,
and not only just for us, but I think for our our audience, listeners. Because our listeners also are listening for things to pick up and learn and everything in terms of the community.
It's the reason when I first started doing the Fox 5 segment, right? They said I did a thing and we did trivia, whatever, and the producer came out. It was only supposed to be a one-time thing, obviously. You come on as a guest and whatever. And the producer came out and said, she goes, look, I want to do 4 segments with you. Are you cool with that? And I said, sure. She goes, I don't think we can come up with anything past 4 segments as far as topics, but I want to cover some stuff because one of the things I picked up is I learn things and then I kind of translate them into kind of everyday talk. Right?
Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, am I going to get on here and be like, the Kimmeridgian Marl and Chablis is just like,
I don't even know what you just said.
That's the thing. Nobody does.
French?
Nobody cares. But it is, kind of.
Right.
But,
Here we go,
I mean, and that's the thing. Nobody wants to hear about that stuff.
Yeah.
But when we talk about Chablis, that it's made in a really clean, crisp style, and you get the really nice lemon notes, that's what people want to hear, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I like. That's how I like to talk about wine and do that sort of thing. So I'm more than happy to do this.
Well, then stay tuned for part 2.
Yeah.
Or 3,
Part
4,
3.
5, whatever.
Man, I got to go buy a lot of wine. The Stellar Palate coming here. That's right.
All right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much once again.
Thank you for having me.
So, Will, the wine guy, let our listeners know a little bit about where to find Coomber wine.
Yes, Coomber Craft Wines Oceanside is at 611 Mission Avenue in Oceanside, 92054.
Okay.
We do live music 7 nights a week. We have Grammy Award winners. We have San Diego Music Award winners that come through. We have, on a regular basis, right?
What?
Yeah. And it's from 6 to 9 o'clock is the live music. So we all have bedtimes, and we like to abide by those bedtimes.
Yeah.
We always say, this is where you start, not where you finish necessarily.
Yeah.
Right? You can finish wherever else. So, come on through, check out the live music that we have there. And like I said, we're open 7 nights a week. We do full wine tastings. We generally have between 20 and 25 different wines that we make and that we have there. And you can do a full flight. Please join the wine club. The wine club, when you see the benefits of the wine club, the tastings are $25 a piece, right?
Okay.
You join the wine club, you pay $80 for the month. You get 2 bottles, right? And you get 8 tastings. And a month, that's $200 in tasting.
That is.
Yeah, and you get to bring your friends. So it's just you and 7 friends.
Yeah.
The 2 of you bring your 6 friends, right?
Are this same wine club when the Vista location opens?
It will definitely be the same wine club, right? And we do a wine club party where we do you taste for an hour and a half, and all the tastings are free, and it's great as far as that goes. I shouldn't say free. They're a benefit of the
they're part of the package.
They're part of your $80 you're paying a month,
Right?
Right? And you get 15% off, and we have all these different things. So
sounds great.
definitely take a look at the wine club. It's as good a wine club as you're going to find. So.
Oh, that's really good.
Social media.
Yeah, Coomber Wines. That's it. Go look up Coomber Wines. It's super easy. COOMBER Wines on Facebook or Instagram. We don't do anything on Twitter because I think that's a little crazy at this point.
Yeah.
So we stick with kind of the major ones.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll move to TikTok. We'll see what Congress says about that.
Yeah.
Right.
That's up for.
I wouldn't move too fast.
Yeah, that's right.
I wouldn't move too fast on it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because what TikTok CEO right now is like in DC trying to convince them.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
not to
so-
force them to sell.
Right.
So right now we just stick with Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coomber Wines.
All right, got
And
it.
you can see the list of everything that we have planned. But yeah, I think, if you come in and you don't like it, then I think you might be the first. So.
Wow. Love that.
That's great.
Love that confidence.
Yeah, it's truth. I mean, it's truth's the truth, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a good time. It's a beautiful spot in Oceanside. We're building another beautiful spot here in Vista, and so yeah, I mean, I think you'll really enjoy it. You bring your own food in. We don't do food, so it's a cheap night out, right? If you want to just do charcuterie with your girlfriends, go to Costco. Bring in the Costco charcuterie, or you can order from the restaurants across the street. They'll deliver right to your table.
Wow.
Yeah. Or, you can just come in and have a little bit of wine, listen to some music, and, you're out of there by 9, in bed by 9:30, and see you later.
Sounds like a good night.
Right?
That does.
Yeah.
Yep. Got it.
Come on out, please.
Sounds good. Well, let's do it. Cheers.
Cheers, Chin Chin. Thank you so much for having
you
me.
for being
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for listening and watching Odd Pairing. So please subscribe, like, rate,
And comment with your favorite drinking stories and curiosities about adult beverages.
Yeah.
Cheers.
I'm going to happy hour. Who's driving?
Walk.